Okay, it's 10 o'clock, Rob.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to this morning's conference call. This week, we got a guest speaker involved. Tony is one of our consultants on staff. Tony wrote a very interesting article for the newsletter, which went out recently. And I was so impressed with the newsletter and the topic of I thought it would be wonderful to make that this week's topic of conversation. The used car department is an incredible customer for service. And so many times when you get into the issues that service has with the used car department, it's flat out stunning that, first of all, the used car department is abused, in my view, many times. Their vehicles are pulled to the side, waited to be brought in for service, kind of like when nothing else is going on, they'll bring in that customer. The used car department, who generally is the number one customer in the dealership service department and parts department. So it's a challenge that everybody needs to address. A lot of times they don't approve repairs. They're waiting to sell the car, and the process should be in place to fix the vehicle before it goes out onto the lot for sale. And many times they say, well, we can't let it sit that long. So here comes the controversy. So I want to welcome Tony to today's call. And Tony, if you would, let's have a conversation about your thoughts on the used car department.
Yeah, good morning, Rob. Good morning, everybody. I agree very much with you, Rob, that many times the used car department becomes abused by the service department. And, you know, I believe it's an age-old dispute back and forth, and, you know, we're probably both as guilty as the other in regard to abusing each other. However, you know, if I had a customer that spent the amount of money in my department as the used car department every month, I would really take care of them. I'm talking about a regular customer off the street, out of the public. Would you not take extra special care of them? And I think everybody would agree that they would. And a lot of the behaviors are, I think, misinterpreted by us in regards to how the used car manager is and what they're trying to do and how they're dealing with us, because everything's, you know, a pain in our neck. We can't get an answer. This, that, the other. First of all, I think that, you know, it's our duty to keep our side of the street clean. If we commit to getting the cars in the shop and checked out and estimates written in a timely manner, then, you know, we're paving the way to keeping our side of the road clean. Now, once we have the car in the shop and an estimate's written, you know, if we're not getting an answer from the sales department, I feel it's perfectly acceptable to ask for an update. Do you have any thoughts on that, Rob?
Well, one of the things that I see is, and I try to encourage dealerships to do, is to pre-authorize, because even if you look at our customer intake process for everybody else, I recommend in that the guy, the advisor, try to pre-authorize an amount for repair. So I've seen it be real successful where we eliminate the waiting on approval or tracking down, interrupting everybody, letting the technician sit. So if you have a pre-authorized amount, let's say $500 on anything that's under 5 years old, that the used car department accepts that's okay, and if it exceeds that amount, then you authorize, you track down and authorize with that person. So you could go if it's between 5 and 8 years, that amount goes down to $400 or $350. And if you have those kind of predetermined amounts that are acceptable, that doesn't mean that the service department would spend the entire amount on every vehicle, but then they wouldn't have to track down. So a scheduled amount for the inspection, and then an amount of authorization that service can work with. So if it needs brake pads, we're not taking 20 minutes out of tech time, tech productivity, or we don't have to reassemble the unit, pull it out back and wait for an auth, that those auths are reviewed and predetermined so that service can rock through those vehicles and take care of the customer, in this case, the used car department.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually a common practice with the big box stores, the Penske, Sonic, AutoNation, in and around the Great Depression of the automotive business, 2008, when those companies were refocusing their strategies on pre-owned used cars and fixed operations as the primary source of revenue. They developed these programs called a trade walk. And every day, Rob, we would get together with the used car manager, the general sales manager, the service manager, and a technician, and a salesperson, and walk around each new car that was taken in on trade. And they would put they would put a cross in the window with a white grease marker, like the four squares. And they would say, here's what the car is. They had a system of categorizing them as an A, B, C, or D car, but how much are we going to spend to recondition the vehicle? And basically, we would walk the car, check the tires quickly, open the hood, look for any obvious things going on under the hood, check to make sure that the air conditioning worked. Now, the salesman would be involved with the process to get an idea of what he thought that car would sell for in the market. Now, the technician and the service manager would come up with a quick number that we think we can recondition the car for, and we wrote it right on the side of the car. Now, the only time anybody needed to update the sales department or get another authorization is if an estimate came up that exceeded that dollar amount. So that was a very, very good way to keep the ball rolling and keep the car in the shop just one time, or not have to waste a lot of time going back and forth, waiting for authorization, chasing down parts, and so on and so forth. Now, that kind of brings me to, what do we think an acceptable amount of time is to have the car in our possession? Rob, do you have a time that you think is acceptable?
Personally, I use the technician staffing, the service staffing should be at a level that's strong enough to turn a used vehicle from time it's received through the service department and into the cleanup process within 48 hours. At the very most, 3 business days. But I still, on the whatever, it sounds like to me, if we're looking at how to keep that increase, then I think it might be a challenge for the typical dealership to get the needed parties together for a walk around the used car before the intake. to service. But as long as there's a process where there's dollar amounts, or such as what you described, Tony, where it's standard, and the only thing that happens is when the vehicle contact that's needed after that is when the vehicle needs additional things or additional problems are found and disclosed. But the key is that dollar number or that process has to be written and followed so it can really expedite the amount of time service has that vehicle in possession. And I think it's critical to note that the practice of bringing a car in when it's sold, after it's sold, and saying, all right, now we need to do the brakes on this unit, or now we need to fix the things we already knew about, gee, that's got to go away. Service has other customers, too, that have to be considered. So to bring them now, make it an emergency to bring that used vehicle in and do what we knew was wrong, that is a practice that's very detrimental to everybody, including the used car department. Have the vehicle right before it hits the lot. That's the critical part of this. And if there's more we can put in play to eliminate any kind of drags in time or processes, the better off everybody is. Wouldn't you agree, Tony?
I agree 100%. I mean, bottom line, our goal is to increase our profits in our service department, us as fixed operations professionals. Now, internal is a very big player in that part. So I know I always feel if we can get more used cars sold, then we have more work in the shop, and I believe that we should make the same efforts to retain those used car customers as we do with new car customers. The used car process is something that we don't always understand from a fixed operations point of view, but I like to think of it like this. If our inventory in service, what we sell is technician time, and that's our commodity, right, Rob? That's our commodity. That's what we sell. If you own a used car lot, your commodity is used cars. That's what you sell. That's your inventory. Now, if I had 10 techs in my shop working 8 hours a day, that's 80 hours of available inventory time. If someone took 5 of my technicians off of the line and wouldn't allow them to produce hours, then that reduces my inventory by 50%. That's a big concern to me. So this is sort of how I always justified in my mind why my used car managers were so desperate to get their cars looked at. With their cars in my possession, it's inventory that can't be used. I think we have an obligation to keep these cars moving. I think that a lot of times we forget about them because they're not in our face, calling several times a day back and forth the way maybe a regular customer pay customer would be. Having a log, a simple log, I think is a very good practice. What day the car was taken in, RO number, the technician, what we found, and the status. And open communication, certainly daily communication between the used car department and the service department is key.
Fantastic. So let's open the lines up at this time and ask. I know this is always a source of controversy for dealerships, but let's open the lines up And obviously, Mike is our moderator every week. That stays the same. Anyone that wants to raise their hand on one of these calls can do so every week by pushing the number 1. So if you push the number 1, your hand is raised. But at this time, in this call, let's open the lines up, Mike, and just make anyone that's on the call has open mic.
They're all open, but it looks like John has a question or concern.
Okay, John?
Hey, how are you? How you doing, Rob?
Fantastic.
Good. I apologize. I missed the very beginning, but when I heard you talking about used cars, I got pretty doggone juiced up and excited because one of the things that I've always experienced is used cars. And when you look at a customer pay vehicle that comes in and how critically important they are to the success of the service department, and then you look at when you're recommending work, the percentage of time that a customer recommends work, and then on top of that, we place a high level of priority on that, which we always should. And then on the other hand, I would see so many times, and it's even happened to me in past years, used car work, they come up with an AVO and they have a bunch of used cars they need to get done, and we would just kind of take them, tuck them to the side, shove them up under the thing, and when it got really, really, really slow and we didn't have any other work going on and nothing else to do, we would grab those AVOs and then just throw them in there, and it would be like deal a meal, and we'd just get them in whenever we needed work. And I started to realize over years that what was important is, most of those vehicles, once we got them inspected, and you say, oh, it's going to cost this much money, and it needs this, and this, most of the time they'd say, go ahead and do it. So then here's all this work that we could put through the shop, and if we simply scheduled it accordingly and almost just like we do customer vehicles, place a high priority on it, whether you're using a route sheet, using the DMS system, whatever type of scheduling you're using, but place a high level of priority, getting that used car work through the shop. To Tony's point, the cars are going to get out on the lot a lot quicker. It's road ready. It's safe. It can be sold. You get another customer in another sold vehicle, and then that starts the process all over again. And it sure helps too that you're demonstrating to the used car manager and the general manager that you have the same type of passion and concern and desire to take care of them as a customer as we do to our customer pay customers. So I think that's something that just makes a lot of sense, and hopefully that might tie in a little bit to what you're discussing.
That's wonderful comments. I appreciate that. Anyone else? We have an open mic at this time, so you can make your comments or raise your hand by pushing the number 1. All right, well, with no other comments, I'd like to close by saying welcome. We had, again, the international scope of this call continues to grow. We've added individuals from Kuwait, and I want to welcome Kuwait, the nation Kuwait, to have people on this call. So now we've got India, and I think Africa, Kuwait, Canada, and the United States. So I appreciate the continued growth of this call. It's always humbling, and I would just thank everybody for your attendance today. And also, if you have friends that would benefit from the call, which should be a lot of folks in the dealer world, please invite them to grow into the call. We really appreciate the fact that the call is growing rapidly, and we're humbled by that. All we want to do is help bring positive issues that every dealership faces on these calls and real-life ways how to deal with those issues. Also like to thank you, Tony, for being involved in this call. And also, if you're not on our newsletter, be sure to get involved with the newsletter. The last newsletter that Tony did was excellent, and they're all of our consultant staff will write newsletters. And final note, this month's Fixed Ops magazine will contain a feature article that I wrote for them. So look for your next Fixed Ops magazine, and we'll be participating in that also.